A lot of these strategies or techniques are based on the teaching of English as a second language. I am an English language learner, and I think that you will find that some of these strategies just work well with all learners, but especially in a multilingual classroom. Heritage speakers and all of us have an intimate connection with the language that we speak and with our particular language variety. As professionals, we tend to be able to function at a fairly sophisticated English level. One of the things that heritage speakers struggles the most is that their register level in the non-English language may not be as developed. In Spanish, for instance, they can be very fluent, but they may speak in a way that is not your mainstream, middle-class, educated type language. And they're aware of that. And when they are in a class with people who have degrees from a Spanish-speaking country, it becomes very stressful to perform and to do role plays with them. So you have to create an atmosphere where learners are motivated and they feel safe, so they can practice, increase their confidence, and manage their anxiety, because for learning to occur, we have to be a little bit anxious. But it's really important that we feel free to speak, even if we make errors, if we have poor grammar. So it's very important that we take a more scientific approach to language. There is no right or wrong. There is no correct or incorrect. Así no se dice. You don't say it like that. Teachers, are responsible to instill the self-esteem of their participants. So please always value the language that your students bring. And we're not, for Spanish we have this regulatory body, la Real Academia Española, that dictates, what is correct and proper language, what gets to go into the dictionary, and we're not their police. The training room should be always a place to explore language and to welcome all levels of language. And Carmen, you reminded me of that when I met you a few years ago. Thank you. Increase the teaching in the non-English language as much as you can. Bring in presentations developed in the non-English language so participants are exposed to professional level fluency, so they can learn about interpreting in their language. So we know how to say sight translation in Spanish. I was really excited when I found that. And because sometimes we don't even know what we're talking about in the non-English language. So enrich them by providing opportunities for them to practice their language in a natural way, just conversing, taking in information, making comments, looking up resources.
I just want to add one thing. How many of you work with institutions that have English-only rules? Okay. I just want to say that we expect people to maintain and enhance their professional language fluency in more than English, but the opportunities to do that are so limited. So organizations that expect bilinguals to turn on and off their language proficiency when it's needed and never have opportunities to use that language professionally is an unrealistic expectation. So there are probably some guidelines, and we're not going to talk about that, but I always want to bring up some policy implications for some of the challenges that we're experiencing trying to prepare a workforce with professional language fluency.
And this was also a recommendation for the clinic to allow bilingual speakers to continue practicing their language, their home language at work in a way that was not disrespectful, but that would allow them to keep on practicing. Otherwise, they would lose their skill. And these are opportunities for your participants to differentiate between language for communication and language for work. When we interpret, we need both. These are just some sample learning objectives of the things that we would want participants to know about when we deliver the information in a bilingual format. Always, when you do learning objectives, make sure that these are things that are measurable, that you can actually see participants do, that you can collect a homework assignment, or you can video, or that you can actually see change. For instance, description, demonstration, identification of different things that are presented to them either in English or in Spanish, or the non-English language. Again, Spanish is my background, so I focus on that, but this could work for many other language groups.
I actually want to say something about medical terminology. How many of you recommend that individuals take medical terminology? Quite a few. How many of the community colleges offer medical terminology in the language of service, not English? Okay, a couple. Again, we have an assumption that if you learn it in English, that something automatic happens, and you just know it in these other languages. That's why doctors who start off bilingual, we expect when they graduate that they're going to be fully fluent and can serve the population. Well, what happens after you go through school for 12 years? What happens to that language proficiency? In their non-English language, it goes down. And they never learn the language equivalents. So again, a policy change might be looking at offering these kinds of courses throughout medical school into languages. We've got to figure out how we can maintain the language fluency that people start with in the professions, because they're not ending with that equal opportunity to speak using the correct terms in another language.
So this is just a sample slide. PowerPoint, it's wonderful, I think, to teach medical terminology. And I don't even like to say medical terminology, health-related language, because you have to teach medical terminology in context. You cannot give participants just a list of terms, as I found out in my travels. You have to give the information in the context of a health topic. And for Spanish, it's really interesting. You even have to have the gender marker, la lengua. It's feminine. Some participants don't even know. They have the medical terminology, but they don't know how to use it without the language component. A lot of visuals are important. This is another slide that is used in this program. Is not an exact translation. Again, the idea is to present the information for meaning, for understanding. Interpreting is not translation word for word. We can be talking about the health topic from different perspectives, and that way, people are enriched. I want to say there is a free resource to all of you in the computer. It's just at your fingertips. Medline interactive tutorials.
Fantastic.
Fabulous. PowerPoint presentations on 100 of topics.